Now, assuming you have a family and you need an MPV or station wagon that is spacious and also one that will give you a high status, good performance, and full economy, without a doubt, you'll most likely tend to buy something like the Honda Jade. It's an MPV that can seat six. It's very comfortable, performs well, and is also quite efficient. But what other options are available in the Kenyan market currently? By not limiting ourselves to MPVs only, there are wagons that are spacious, they perform very well, and will not make you look like a family guy. I'm talking about the Peugeot 308 T9 SW or station wagon, the 2016 model to be precise. It's the second generation that was in production from 2013 till 2021. Then there's also the Subaru Levorg, the 2016 model, which is the first generation, which was in production from 2014 till 2020. The Jade was unfortunately only produced for one generation, after which it was discontinued in 2020. Which wagon or MPV should you go for? We will be finding out in today's comparison review, so please stay tuned. Consider subscribing to the channel for more informative content on cars as well as bikes. Apart from informative content on cars and bikes, we also offer car consultation, in-depth independent reviews, and sourcing of new and locally used cars. A great appreciation to all of you who have been supporting the channel, be it through sharing, liking, and subscribing. I appreciate it. Welcome to Ikevoto Reviews. So just like last time, we will begin with the powertrain and then conclude by looking at the prices to just see which vehicle offers the best value for money. Beginning with the Peugeot, you can get it with a 1.2 liter 3-cylinder turbocharged option. Then there's also a naturally aspirated version of the same engine. The turbo option produces around 130 horsepower, while the non-turbo around 82 horsepower. There's also a 1.6 liter 4-cylinder turbo petrol, but that particular option is exclusive to the hatchback GTI variant. As for the diesel, you can get a 1.6 liter turbo that churns out around 120 horsepower. This wagon is available in only front-wheel drive, and transmission-wise, there's a 6-speed torque converter automatic or a 5 or 6-speed manual. Now, you may wonder how a 3-cylinder engine can propel such a big wagon without feeling underpowered, but I can confirm that the turbo option of the 1.2 liter 3-cylinder is quite decent. 130 horsepower may not sound all that much, but once you get behind the wheel of this wagon, you'll be surprised. The performance is good enough. Something to take note of is that this wagon is quite light, so the power to weight ratio is quite good. The 1.2 liter non-turbo mostly comes in the base models, and it feels a bit lackluster. It's quite underpowered, and this is felt especially when trying to overtake or if the vehicle is carrying a bit of weight. Something good with these Peugeot small engines is that the turbos are small, so there's no too much strain on the engine. If the turbos would have been bigger, then it would have led to a lot of strain on the small engine, and this consequently leads to quicker wear of these engines. Reliability wise, for the most part, these engines are above average. Just make sure you use the right recommended oil and parts. Also service the car at the recommended time. Remember, with these turbocharged engines, good quality oil is very important because that same oil cools and lubricates the turbo. So if you compromise on the oil, then you may run the risk of causing damage to the turbos. The Honda Jade comes with 3 engine options: a 1.5 liter 4-cylinder turbo option that is available in the RS model. This engine is good for around 148 horsepower. Then there's an 1800cc which was exclusive to the Chinese market, so getting it in the Kenyan market can be a bit difficult. Lastly, there's a 1.5 liter hybrid that produces around 130 horsepower. This MPV is available in only front-wheel drive, and as for the transmission, the RS turbo comes coupled to a CVT gearbox, while the hybrid comes coupled to a 7-speed DCT gearbox. As for performance, your best bet is the 1.5 liter RS turbo. Power is there when you need it, and even overtaking will not be an issue. The hybrid is also quite responsive due to that DCT, but do take note that it's a complex gearbox that has had its own share of issues. At times you may notice jerky gear changes or even more serious issues which may just require a total replacement of the gearbox. So it's important to keep that in mind. I would recommend the RS 1.5 liter turbo with the CVT. It's a more reliable option, though being a turbocharged engine, you have to make sure that you maintain it well by doing the service at the recommended mileage and using the original recommended oil and service parts. Lastly, the Subaru Levorg comes with two engine options, both being turbocharged. There's a 1.6 liter which churns out around 168 horsepower. Then there's a more powerful 2.0 liter which produces around 268 horsepower. This car is only available in all-wheel drive, and transmission-wise you only get a CVT, which is a bit disappointing because this organ is quite powerful and it would have been perfect if it would have had a conventional automatic or even a manual. CVTs are not bad, but they don't give that engaging drive. They are just meant for smooth and linear power delivery. So you don't get that instant power, but generally it's not too bad. Subaru tried to tune that CVT quite well, and it even has preset gear ratios which try to mimic a conventional automatic. They give you that impression that you are changing gears using the paddle shifts, but in actual sense they are just fake gears. In terms of reliability, they do quite well. Subarus have had their own share of issues such as those to do with head gaskets, but generally they are reliable vehicles. And this Levorg is no exception. It's reliable, but again, just as I said earlier, maintenance is very key with any turbocharged engine. Maintain it well and it will serve you reliably for long. The engine option I would recommend is the 1.6 liter. It strikes a very good balance between power and efficiency. The 2.0 is for enthusiasts. It's very powerful, but it will dent your pocket when it comes to consumption. What about their efficiency? The 1.2 liter turbo in the Peugeot can return about 17 kilometers per liter, the non-turbo up to an impressive 20 kilometers per liter, and the diesel up to 22 kilometers per liter. The 1.5 turbo in the Jade RS will give around 16 kilometers per liter, the 1.8 around 13.5, and the hybrid up to 25 kilometers per liter. Expect around 14 kilometers per liter in the Levorg's 1.6 liter and 12 kilometers per liter in the 2.0. So excluding the Jade hybrid, the most efficient option here is the Peugeot, thanks to its small capacity engines. Still on the Peugeot, it has a 53 liter capacity fuel tank. The Jade has a 47 liter for non-hybrids, while the hybrids have a 40 liter tank, and the Levorg has a 60 liter tank. The ground clearance on the Peugeot measures between 135 to 150 millimeters. The GT versions sit lower to the ground, so they have even lower clearance. The hybrid versions of the Jade have a 140mm clearance with 16-inch wheels, while the RS has a slightly better clearance of 150mm with larger 18-inch wheels. Lastly, the Levorg has a 130mm clearance. Now, the best thing to do if you want to increase the clearance is just installing slightly larger wheels. If you modify the suspension, you will affect the ride and handling of these vehicles. In fact, just recently there's a client who bought a Honda Jade, and I advised him to install slightly larger wheels, and after he did so, he noticed that the efficiency also improved by around 1.5 kilometers per liter. Stopping power is made possible in these cars by ventilated discs at the front and solid discs at the back in the Peugeot and Honda Jade. The Levorg is the only wagon that also gets ventilated discs at the back, so it has better braking and heat dissipation. As for the suspension, all the three vehicles get McPherson struts at the front, while at the back, the Jade and Levorg get a double wishbone setup, and the Peugeot gets coil springs. They all provide a comfortable ride, though the Jade is slightly better, while the Levorg is just a bit stiff to aid in better handling, especially on corners. It tends to feel a bit more stable, and this can also be attributed to the symmetrical all-wheel drive. Safety-wise, all these vehicles get driver, passenger, side, and curtain airbags. The Levorg even adds a driver's knee airbag. They also get anti-lock brake system, electronic brake force distribution, electronic stability programming, traction control, and hill start assist. Then they also come with active driver assist safety features, but some of them are optional. For example, in the Peugeot, Parking assist, forward collision mitigation, and blind spot detection are all optional. If you are lucky to get a 308, which the original owner bought these options, then you'll have a very safe car. In the Honda Jade, the optional safety features are collision mitigation and lane keeping assist. In the Subaru Levorg, it even gets better because lane keeping assist and collision mitigation are standard. The optional features are blind spot detection and headlights control system. This Subaru is very advanced and is in fact the safest wagon here. Moving on to their carb weights, the Peugeot is the lightest, measuring in at between 1060 to 1320 kgs, the Jade between 1430 to 1510, and the Levorg between 1520 to 1580 kgs. Lastly, some of the extra features you can expect to get in these vehicles include a panoramic glass roof in the Peugeot, while in the other two you can get sunroofs. There's also leather interior, 18-inch alloy wheels, paddle shifts, multifunction leather-wrapped steering wheel, backup camera, parking sensors, and even more. Now let's talk about their prices. A 2016 Peugeot station wagon 308 will set you back between 1.7 to around 2 million depending on the trim level. A 2016 Jade will set you back between 1.75 to around 2 million, and lastly the Levorg between 1.8 to around 2.5 2.6 million. So it's the most expensive wagon here. Before we discuss about value for money, let's quickly talk about the exteriors and interiors. Do let me know your preference in terms of the exterior design. I will say the Peugeot really looks nice. It's sporty, sleek, and elegant. It would in fact be my pick among the three. The Levorg also looks very striking, bold, and sporty, thanks to that dominant hood spoke. Last but not least, the Jade is a bit more conservative, but in a bit of a stylish way. Ideally, there is no bad looking vehicle here. Stepping into their interiors, beginning with the Peugeot, you'll notice it's a bit narrower compared to the other two vehicles, but the dash design is on the interesting side. It's simple, neat, and clean with very few buttons and controls. In fact, even the AC is controlled from the infotainment screen, and this can be a bit difficult to control if you are driving. Something else which may be an issue to some people is the instrument cluster, which is viewed above the steering wheel. So if you are short, then that steering wheel will obstruct your view. In some cases, even if you adjust the seat height and steering column, you may still not be able to have the full view of that instrument cluster. So do keep that in mind. It will depend on your height, but aside from that, the seats are comfortable enough. The infotainment screen is even angled slightly towards the driver to give the impression that this is a driver-centric car. At the back, there's average space. The legroom is average at best, and tall people may feel a bit crumpled, but if you get a variant with the panoramic glass roof, then the cabin will feel a bit more airy. The boot is huge, so much can fit back there, and if you even want more space, the rear seats can be folded down. Moving on to the Honda Jade, this being an MPV, it's certainly more spacious. It can seat 6 people in comfort. There's very good space at the front. The dash design is futuristic. It gets a digital instrument cluster which is easy on the eyes, very easy and clear to see. The seats are very comfortable and it generally feels more spacious. It's a wider car, so there's that feeling of airiness. At the second row, there are two captain seats which offer very good comfort. Traveling in this car on a long journey is quite enjoyable. Even the third row is quite spacious, that adults of average height will be accommodated comfortably. The boot with the third row of seats up is very limited, but once you fold them down, the space increases significantly. Lastly, the Subaru Levorg has a more basic approach in terms of the dash design. It's simple and straightforward. In fact, this interior is similar to what you get in the Impreza. Space-wise, it's good enough at the front but average at the back, just like in the Peugeot. Two people will be comfortable back there, but three at a squeeze. The boot is very spacious, and if more space is even needed, then the back seats can be folded down. Now back to value for money. For a family, the Honda Jade is the best bet. At around 1.8 million, you can get a very comfortable, efficient, spacious, and well-performing MPV. If you have a family of 6, everyone will be very comfortably accommodated. So this is the best bet for a family. On the other hand, if for some reason you don't want the Jade or don't want to look like a family guy, then the Peugeot seems to offer a very good value. It's very efficient, looks premium, drives well thanks to its conventional automatic, and is reliable as well. With 1.7 million, you can get this French wagon. Now, the Subaru Levorg is a bit more expensive. Yes, it's more powerful and is safer, but does this justify the almost half a million price difference? I don't think so. The Peugeot does almost everything that the Levorg does, yet it's more affordable. So that will be my recommendation. Do let me know which one you would prefer. Before we wrap up, we also need to look into each car's strong and weak points. Let's quickly begin with the Peugeot. This French wagon is efficient, spacious, engaging to drive, and even the spare parts such as service parts are easily available. Long gone are the days when Peugeot parts were a bit difficult to get. Still on the spares, this takes us on to the weak points, specifically the body parts. They can be a bit difficult to get and are not cheap by any means, but this will change with time as dealers keep stocking them. Another con is low ground clearance, turbo issues which can be as a result of poor maintenance. There are also DPF issues to do with the diesel options. Another weak point is the instrument cluster obstruction that we talked about earlier, though this is a minor issue. There have also been reports about oil consumption. You find that you have to keep topping up the oil after every few hundred kilometers. This is normally usually caused by bore damage as well as faulty piston rings. Remember that these modern vehicles are designed with planned obsolescence in mind. So you may find that the mechanical parts don't last that much. Problems will just start occurring at some point because the automakers want you to buy another car or buy another engine and end up giving them more and more money. Lastly, there's the issue to do with the electronic handbrake, which can at times misbehave or even fail, and this is normally caused by wiring issues. Apart from these issues, which by the way are sporadic, this is a reliable car for the most part. Onto the Honda Jade, this Japanese MPV, as we said earlier, is very spacious, comfortable, efficient, especially the hybrid, and it's very reliable, especially the non-hybrid. Onto its weaknesses, the first one is low ground clearance. The second one is the DCT in the hybrid, and we talked about this earlier. Lastly, the cost of battery replacement is very high, and this is a common issue with all hybrids. Lastly, the Subaru Levorg looks quite sporty and aggressive. It's a safe wagon thanks to the eyesight technology, which brings in a suite of standard active driver assist safety features across the board from the basic grade to the top tier grade. It also handles quite well due to the all-wheel drive. Onto the weak points, just like in the other two vehicles, it has low ground clearance. Secondly, it's a bit overpriced. The spares are also a bit on the expensive side, and this is because it's still a new model in the Kenyan market. Another issue is to do with the CVT gearbox. If you notice the car beginning to lose power or there's some delay in power delivery, these are some of the signs that the CVT may have a problem, and in most cases, if the problem is serious, then you may just have to replace the transmission because repairing these CVTs is not easy and it's expensive. Lastly, it's not as efficient as its competitors, and this is partly to do with the weight, all-wheel drive, and power that it offers. Now, the mechanical issues I've mentioned in all these cars do not particularly occur frequently. They are sporadic, and generally these cars are reliable if maintained well. And as we all know, there's no perfect car. I hope this has been helpful, and just a quick recap. If you need a family car, the Jade will suit you perfectly. If you want something different with a bit of performance, looks, status, and efficiency at a reasonable price, then the Peugeot is a good option. If you really like the Levorg and finances allow, then go for it. Thanks a lot for watching. If you have any inquiries, feel free to reach me via WhatsApp or email. That's it for this particular episode. Stay safe, drive safe, Ride safe, especially during this time that you are headed for the festive season. See you in the next one.